Suddenly, a new sound intruded on his thoughts. He turned. A lone flatbed railcar was trundling down the track toward his position. First contact. For a brief moment, Chris stood still, anticipation and uncertainty coursing through him. He brought his arm out and gave a thumbs up, hoping that this universal gesture was not limited to his universe. Belatedly, he realized that there was no one steering the vehicle. The sole passenger sat toward the back. All the same, the train car was slowing down, with a faint metallic squeal of brakes. As it drew closer, more details registered. He'd never seen anything like it. The carriage was entirely open. 4 massive bamboo posts at each corner supported an arched roof that appeared to be a thick, distressed brass plate. The railcar came to a stop beside him. It could have been controlled remotely, but Chris doubted it. No, some onboard image recognition software had identified a person, understood his hand signal, and brought it to a stop, presumably to pick up a commuter. The glasses he wore had been Ronnie's brainchild. Chris had to admit it was a clever idea. They looked like ordinary corrective glasses, which they had noticed on people in Americana. However, these glasses were pretenders, hiding a tiny video camera and a micro SD card that could record 26 hours of footage. 26 hours that could change history and, on a crasser note, line their pockets with extra coin. This is it, he thought, feeling his heart race and adrenaline surge. A discreet tap on the frame activated the hidden recorder. Stay calm. You got this, Chris told himself as he climbed into the open railway carriage and nodded to the lone female passenger. She sat in a hammock chair, a stunning, fair-skinned woman in her early 20s. She wore a dusty sage-green blouse and matching button-down skirt, cinched neatly at the waist, with a notched collar and sleeves that hugged just above the elbow. The carriage remained stationary, waiting for something. She looked at him, and he merely looked back. Her long, dark hair flowed down her back, settling in soft waves. A sudden breeze sent it tumbling around her face, and she pushed it away with a flick of her wrist, revealing anew her intense green eyes, now sparkling with good-natured humor.
"Hold your palm over the scanner," she called out.
Chris glanced around, finally understanding what she meant, and then realized it was not going to work. The young woman got up, the pleated skirt swaying just below her knees, her black heels clicking softly on the gritty wooden floor as she approached. She stopped in front of him, standing closer than necessary. "Here," she said, guiding his hand to a small glass plate he'd missed. It flashed red. She appeared puzzled and tried again.
"Odd. Your palm vein pattern isn't in the system."
With a shrug, she placed her own hand on the scanner, which flashed green. With a jolt, the rail car started moving.
"It's on me,"
she said casually and turned back.
"I appreciate it,"
Chris mumbled, his throat dry. So those were to be the first words of an earthling in this parallel universe. Not quite. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But history would have to make do. A moment ago, she'd tucked away her earpiece and slipped on a smile. Now she glanced back. This was him. The one Homeland Security had flagged. The one she'd been sent to observe. The real-time tracking data the department provided had been spot on. She boarded the rail car at just the right moment to coincidentally meet her target. Why had her handler chosen to involve her in this? He'd told her this assignment was uncritical, and from his tone, she'd deduced he thought little of it. Border infiltrators wouldn't have their biometrics in the database. Such individuals were rare but not unheard of. What set this man apart? She smiled inside, thankful for the assignment all the same. A last one had been 6 months earlier, and was not nearly as visually gratifying. As she walked back to her seat, she steadied herself with the straps dangling from the ceiling.
"First time on a train?"
she asked, glancing over her shoulder. Chris made a strangled sound.
You call that a train?
The railroad car lurched, and he grabbed onto one of the hanging straps to steady himself. She laughed heartily, sat down and gestured.
Care to join me?
Sure.
He made his way to the suspended hammock chair next to hers and settled in.
Chris Walden.
He said by way of introduction. With a charming, well-bred smile, she extended her hand.
How do you do? I am Miss Sandra Allen,
She said. As they shook, Chris felt a wave of relief. Her accent was comfortably familiar, mirroring that of his own America. This meant he would have an easier time blending in. Still, her speech had a distinct quality, a graceful cadence reminiscent of old black-and-white films. Chris resolved to listen closely and match her intonation. The hanging hammock chairs, secured by ropes looped through floor-mounted rings, could be pivoted effortlessly. With their feet down, the two comfortably turned to face one another. He found himself gazing too long, captivated by her green eyes, reminiscent of sunlight filtering through leaves. A balmy gust of wind jolted him back to the present. Only then did he realize he was still holding her hand. Heat crept up his neck as he dropped her hand, hoping she hadn't noticed.
It's fun to ride this way,
He said, trying to regain his composure.
but maybe not so much when it rains.
The young woman smiled, revealing even white teeth.
This is an open model, suitable for when rain is unlikely. Naturally, there are enclosed models for colder or rainy days.
That didn't sound quite right.
How can anyone know if it's going to rain, especially in Colorado?
By performing the rain dance,
She said, leaning in, and then gave him a mischievous grin.
it's just a 20-minute shuttle ride from Lafayette to Boulder.
She explained.
The transport system is continually fed weather data. Basic computer programming, I would wager.
Chris returned her smile, nodding in acknowledgement, though his gaze lingered on the dainty parasol by her feet, struggling to reconcile this antique charm with computer programming. In fact, everything about the encounter felt disconcerting. The parasol from the early 1900s, her attire from the 1940s, the autonomous vehicles from the present, and the railway carriage's design, completely alien. He reminded himself that none of it must have seemed out of place in this parallel universe. Americana was to them what America was to him, a ramshackle patchwork of eras and habits that somehow held together. Hell, for all he knew, a traveler from a third universe might find his own homeland just as eccentric. 18th century pennies rattling alongside mid-century personal checks and present-day cryptocurrency. Ear gauges visible beneath caps and gowns during graduation ceremonies. There was a measure of formality in her speech that went along with her dress, yet there was also forthrightness he hadn't expected. Keep it cool, he said to himself. The video camera embedded in his eyeglasses was on. This was one for the history books, even if the young woman across from him was unaware of the magnitude of the moment. She was still explaining.
During the morning rush hour, trains with multiple cars are dispatched frequently. The numbers taper down in the middle of the day, or in the dead of the night. The adaptive control continuously adjusts and responds to patterns of passenger demand, accounting for days of the week, weather.
She stopped abruptly, her cheeks flushing a delicate pink.
My apologies. Sometimes I forget I'm not in front of a class.
Ah, a teacher.
Sandra nodded.
Literature.
She studied him openly, then tossed her hair back.
And you, hiking, Mr. Walden?
Exploring around, first time in the area.
Their legs brushed against each other as she crossed her legs, and the fabric of her skirt slid slightly up her thigh. Their eyes met once more, lingering. The carriage slowed down again, and Sandra broke eye contact and looked out, shifting a bit in her seat. Up ahead, by the side of the track, two young boys stood with arms outstretched.
Good afternoon, Miss Allen.
They chimed, jumping on and hauling their kick scooters aboard. The boys held up their hands over the small glass plate, and the rail car started again.
Roy, Wayne.
The woman acknowledged. She folded her hands in her lap.
How's your day going?
Oh, just well, Miss Allen.
Golly, Miss Allen, you should have seen them bluegills fight. Wayne almost fell clean into the water,
The other said, and pushed the bucket closer for her to inspect. Chris eyed them curiously. They were barefoot, wearing straw hats and denim overall shorts. Brothers by the look of it, and on the summer vacation by all appearances.
I predict you'll have a great dinner tonight,
Sandra pronounced.
You bet!
One of them agreed. Moments later, the boys lay down and dangled from an overhanging lattice of ropes, gazing at the wild grass a couple of feet below as it whizzed by. Chris observed them with a touch of apprehension. The children had no harness, no safety net, nothing to secure them.
Is there no danger of them falling over?
Well, one can never tell.
Sandra said with a twinkle in her eye. She turned to the boys.
What's one more bruise or a twisted ankle? Right, Wayne?
I did not fall off that time, Miss Allen.
Wayne said.
I jumped.
At some section of the track, the train goes right to the edge of the lake.
Sandra intimated to Chris in a stage whisper.
He missed it and landed in the dirt instead.
She laughed softly at the memory. Chris blinked. He'd heard of free-range chickens before, but free-range kids? Apparently, people here believed in a school of hard knocks approach to child rearing.